I'm in no doubt that if you've clicked on this video that you have some interest or knowledge about UFOs. Me personally, I've always had a keen interest in the subject, especially when I was a young kid and teenager. I would buy UFO magazines and watch any documentaries that I could find. But I have to admit, this case blew my mind, mainly because I was amazed that I had never heard of it before. A UFO lands at a school in Zimbabwe, amongst dozens of witnesses in broad daylight. Believe me when I tell you, this will blow your minds. One thing I want to say before I get into this video is, whilst doing my research for this case, as you're about to discover, involves child witnesses, but I want you to keep in mind whilst you watch this video that the children's testimony as to what happened has never changed. In fact, a recent documentary was filmed whereby the makers of said documentary revisited Rua and spoke to the now adult children, having flown them in from all areas of the globe. The children have all grown up now and have a wide range of reputable jobs and have gone on to lead fairly successful lives. To this day, the children and the teachers involved have continued to stick to the original accounts of what happened. Hi folks, I'm Johnny and welcome to The Oddest. You're about to watch my first video on this topic. Hopefully there will be more to come. If you have any suggestions of lesser known UFO cases or alien cases, drop me a wee comment and let me know. With that being said, let's get into the video. Let's pop across to Zimbabwe in Africa. It's 1994 and it's a regular school day for the kids and teachers at the Ariel school in Rua. Rua is a small agricultural village located about 13 miles to the southeast of the capital, Harare. At the time of the incident, it was barely a town. It was more like a crossroads in an agricultural region. The Ariel school was a private school, and the students there were mainly white kids from wealthy families in the area. At the time, the school housed around 90 pupils, with the youngest class being 5-year-olds to the oldest group of 12-year-olds. On September 14th and 15th in 1994, there were several reports of sightings in the area of strange objects in the sky. UFOs, or UAPs as they're more commonly known these days. There were reports of something similar to a bright fireball passing through the sky at night. This fireball or object was said to have travelled at breakneck speeds and had the ability to change direction on a whim, giving a spectacular aerial display to onlookers before zipping off and out of sight. It's worth noting that a local radio station had reported on this and asked its listeners to call in with any reports of sightings of this strange phenomena. And the reports rolled in. People said they saw balls of light in the sky. Some people claimed to have seen metallic objects. In the main though, people simply put all this down to a meteorite entering the atmosphere over the skies of Zimbabwe. However, on the 16th of September, an event would take place in a school in front of all the children in the playground and several members of the teaching staff. One of these teachers, Colin Mackey, actually he was the head teacher of the Ariel school, and he was about to hold a meeting with his fellow colleagues. If you are a teacher, then you'll know that the best time for these wee meetings would be when the kids have playtime. As he sat in the staff room, patiently waiting for the faculty to arrive, a short time later the room was filled as the teachers all clambered in, all the while discussing certain students as they'd done so before greeting Mr. Mackey and taking a seat. In his position as head teacher, he was responsible for overseeing the education of the kids in the school, making sure that the national syllabus was being adhered to and of course the health and safety of the kids placed into his care during their time at the school. These meetings were a regular occurrence and were held to get an overall view of how things were running within the school. Were there any concerns about particular curriculum being delivered? Were there any students that needed particular attention for some reason or another? As the meeting went on, those inside the staff room became aware that a large group of kids in the playground had been progressively getting louder. Something had clearly garnered their attention and was causing widespread audible excitement. Of the 90 or so pupils at the school, 62 of them were out in the playground that day. However, as the disturbance increased, sounds of yelling and excitement would turn into screaming and sounds of fear and alarm. As soon as the faculty became aware of this situation, they all kicked away their seats from underneath them and headed for the exits and out onto the playground to try and uncover what was causing such a massive commotion. Once they all got out into the open air of the schoolyard, they were met with something that would be like in a science fiction movie. Around half of the pupils had broken protocol and had left the protective confines of the playground and were all congregated around a patch of land just across the school boundary. All of the kids were showing intense emotion. Some were stood crying, but more worryingly, some had collapsed to the ground. As the teachers all ran to the children's aid, several of the younger children told the teachers through tears and sobs that they had just witnessed a Takolshi. This is an evil spirit from local folklore. However, the older children would tell a different story. They would say that they had seen a little man from another world who had visited them to warn humanity about the future. When the researcher asked where this mysterious visitor had gone, several of the kids simply pointed upwards to the sky, saying that he had flown off back to the heavens. Whether it was aliens or a mythological creature from local folklore, what is certain is that something definitely took place. Mackie would select a handful of the less hysterical and older pupils. He headed back into the school with them, and after ensuring that they were not conferring amongst each other, he sat them down individually apart and presented them with a blank piece of paper and a pencil. He then told them to draw exactly what they had seen. To his amazement and fear, the results were strikingly similar. Whilst all the kids were out in the playground, they all began pointing up to the sky as they could see three metallic spherical objects hovering some distance away. A moment later, all three objects would vanish in a flash of red light, only to reappear almost immediately. Only this time, they were much closer. In fact, they were only a few meters away from the playground boundary. The objects slowly descended towards the ground, right in front of their very eyes. Some of the younger children felt naturally afraid and would back off, feeling anxious. Several of the older children, however, with their curiosity piqued, would stand fast and wait to see what would happen next. Two of the objects reascended towards their original position. The remaining object descended into a nearby cluster of trees. This area was strictly off limits to the children due to the danger of poisonous snakes and spiders. However, this didn't stop a few of the older ones opting to run across and investigate further. The children were now through the foliage and standing in the clearing with a clear view of the craft. To their amazement, shock and horror, a being emerged from the top of the craft. Witnesses would later say that they didn't see any visible doorway or hatch that allowed this. Nonetheless, in full view, a creature now stood. The bipedal creature was around 3 foot tall and was dressed in a dark, shiny suit of some sort. Witness accounts said that he was thin with long arms and legs and bulbous black eyes in the shape of a rugby ball. Some of the witnesses also said that his neck was long and thin, whilst others recall him having long hair or a dark hood. The entity floated down from the craft until its feet met with the earth. He appeared to be walking around as if inspecting the grass. At this point, a second figure appeared at the top of the object, much like the first. This proved too much for some of the witnesses, who were sent screaming back to the school building. The creatures became aware of the young audience stood there observing them. The first creature moved a short distance towards the group, only stopping a few meters away, and continued to silently stare at the kids through its dark eyes. The children would later go on to say that they were overcome by a feeling of despair and hopelessness. Several claimed to have had visions of the world dying around them. They said that the visitors did not speak to them directly. It was more like they were communicating by imprinting images directly into the minds of the youngsters. Images that warned that if Earth's technology advanced too much or were to be used in the wrong manner, then this would mean certain destruction by our own hand. After a few minutes of this, the entity turned round and floated back up to the top of the craft, re-entering the same way it had come out. Then all three objects shot up into the sky at great speed, disappearing in a flash of red light. The head teacher, Colin Mackey, and the rest of the teaching staff would arrive moments later. Mind I said earlier that Mackey had sequestered a few of the older witnesses to draw what they had seen. In total, approximately 35 drawings had been created, depicting what each child had perceived to be an alien visitor that day. The next day, the place was overrun with media and news outlets. In the days following the incident, a number of leading UFO experts also arrived in Rua. After interviewing the witnesses, they eventually left the area with no doubts that the children were telling the truth about what they had seen. The fact that the children had come from various backgrounds, were varied in age, ethnicity and social standing, yet were able to provide near identical account of what happened, was a clear indicator that the story could not have simply been made up. Many of the children were unfamiliar with the concept of aliens or UFOs. These were local youths from poor households and believed what they had experienced were some form of demon or spiritual creature. As I said, this was because they had no form of reference. They simply didn't know what a UFO or an alien would look like. A few days later, it was reported that several eyewitnesses at another nearby school had also seen the same objects. Throughout history, there are countless accounts of people having similar experiences with UFOs and other worldly beings. A lot of these have similar elements to that of the Ariel school visitation. Numerous accounts by abductees have claimed that the entities communicated with them via telepathy. There has also been several instances where UFOs have been sighted apparently visiting other schools and teaching facilities. There's a well-documented case from Melbourne in Australia back in the April of 1966. At 11 AM that morning, several pupils who were in attendance at West Hall High School ran to tell teachers that an odd-looking craft was hovering over the school playground. The news spread throughout the school, and the entire school building pretty much emptied out into the playground. Around 300 witnesses made their way outside to see what the commotion was. Witnesses there claimed that the craft that they saw was oval-shaped and was the size of 2 large cars stuck together. In a similar fashion to the Ariel school visitor, this object slowly descended to the ground a short distance from the school into a patch of trees nearby. To the amazement and excitement of onlookers, 5 military fighter jets appeared overhead and began to circle the area. The craft responded by ascending back up to the afternoon sky, and only after engaging in a game of cat and mouse with the military, the craft shot off over the horizon at great speeds. The next day, an assembly was called, and the head teacher informed the students that they were forbidden from discussing the incident with anyone. Military officials had also attended the school in the subsequent days and simply told all those involved that they were mistaken. There were also reports of official-looking men dressed all in black inspecting the tree line where the craft had landed. Another thing to note, during the Rua incident at the Ariel school, one of the teachers there, she had came out and said that she didn't believe the children and that she didn't see anything and that it was nothing more than an elaborate prank. However, in a 2021 documentary about this case, she was interviewed on camera and came out saying that she did in fact see the craft that day, but she was so afraid that she went straight into instant denial. She publicly apologised for not believing the children that day. So, what have we to make of all this? What's your thoughts? Is it as the reports say, aliens from another galaxy visiting us? Or are we utterly alone in the universe? Theories range from mass hysteria to a well-engineered prank. Another interesting theory is that these beings that have been reported over the past 100 years are actually humans greatly evolved from a far-off future. They have the ability of interdimensional travel and have outgrown things like verbal language. To be honest, there are gazillions of cases that I could discuss here. I may well cover more UFO encounters at a later date. If you have enjoyed your time here today, please consider subscribing. It only takes a wee second and it means that you'll know when I upload more videos, and besides that, it helps my channel to grow and ensure that I can make more content. Keep a wee eye out for dodgy flying saucers, stay safe, and remember, keep smiling.